up your system for free if it is 10 cars. But as you grow your business and you see the value of how important this data and this content is for you, the data which is coming from GPS meters or from the car OBD device, you start paying up. And you start paying up once your data crosses a certain limit, your number of cars go beyond a certain limit, or the amount of data you want stored goes up. So these kind of models are available, and IBM has also launched IBM Bluemix, which is platform as a service, where these kind of models are available, where you start as a freemium customer, free, and you start using it, utilizing it, seeing the value of it, and then as your business grow, you start paying for the service. So the whole model in the industry is that you want to check out and you want to find out whether the value is beneficial to me, and then you start paying for all the data that you are receiving. And the good part of a cloud and a platform as a service model is that you can scale from 20 cars to 20,000 to 20 million cars, because the cloud system will support your scale, and it will support the mechanism of you going up in cycles. So this builds up the business model for the people who are investing in IoT. It builds up the model for people who are hosting services for IoT, and as well as hosting analytics services. So the business model of this has to be tied to the technical stack, and once both of them have a solution for a particular use case, then that's a win-win situation. I'll also spend some time on where we are focusing our energy on. So from IBM's perspective, we focus a lot on the connected vehicle, the connected products, and the engineering space where continuous operations and operations need to be streamlined. And that includes what the government is investing in smarter cities, where the traffic management, where the garbage collection, the waste disposable management systems, and even things in healthcare for women and child safety. So these are some of the areas where we think there is going to be benefit of IoT, because there are sensors there is a need of scale, there is a need of start small but grow big, and there is a need of IoT data being of value to the customer, because it's ultimately, we are consumers, we pay for the value, we don't pay for data which is confusing us. And while these things are being placed, I'm sure technologists like me will solve the data aggregation and the data segregation and the big data problem for all of us. That's it.
We have about 16 minutes left, so rather than me asking questions and having a discussion, I think it might be useful just to open it up and see if anybody out in the audience have any questions specifically for any one of us individually, and then we can summarize. So go ahead, please.
Thank you for the discussion. I have something related to a common thing that came out from all of your topics, starting with Anil and the rest of, when you said that for the Internet of Things, we need to have a local economic approach. At the same time, you said you wanted to go for the global. There are a few things that happened in the recent years. Firstly, China blocked Google from entering into China. European Union is breaking down Google because of its spying operation, the NSA, the case. So what I'm seeing for Internet of Things to succeed, people should have confidence that their private information is very secure. And a company which is not headquarters in that particular country, how reliable can people be about that data being secure is something that's need to be very much important. So what I feel, for Internet of Things to succeed for every country, I guess the globalization model is not going to work. It has to be focused on every country's local economy. So what is your take on it?
Good. Any one of you like to start on that?
Yeah. So, it's things, I would say things are as safe as you want to keep them, right? Nothing is safe and everything is safe. So we start small, and I perfectly agree that, the data has to be kept in, and there are a lot of data privacy laws. And we have also been talking to a lot of our clients who want to keep health data, insurance data, pretty much within their own premises. So what is emerging is hybrid clouds, right? So hybrid clouds where, it's not public, it's not private. The normal assumption people say is that IoT means everything is going to be private, but it's not like that. There are architectural models existing and as well as business models supporting them where data is stored locally, but there is a certain processing that you will do on the cloud. So one is that pattern where you do processing on the cloud but store locally. The other pattern is that you process even on your own VMs, on your own databases, but you follow the cloud architecture. See, what does a customer want? The customer says, data I should keep, but I want to take value of all the cloud mechanisms that I can grow. I don't have to invest too much into too much of hardware and software. So those cloud models are possible for a single customer. That is definitely possible. So these are two patterns which help you to keep your data to yourself. Beyond this, then there are mechanisms of encryptions and mechanisms of how you share your private and public keys so that you have total control on your data.
Yeah, so just add a little bit to kind of the hardware aspect. So certainly some of the mechanisms in terms of providing encryption for data in flight and at rest is increasingly a requirement for people that build infrastructure products or in our disk storage products. The other thing though that becomes available once we start having more sensors and bioauthentication is this notion of persistent identity. So you can have your keys and also you tie that in with bio data that only you can provides an extra level of security on top of your data as well. So there are emerging models that can strengthen that.
I'm going to go to the gentleman right behind you, but before I do that, just want to add one more, which is beyond the techno, because I get involved in these discussions and I hear this all the time, whether it's in Brazil or Russia or China or elsewhere. Too often what happens is people are confusing between protocols and then they get into policies and they confuse the two. So some of the things that you're talking about on privacy of data, there's a protocol issue on how do you manage and segregate the data, but then there are policy issues as to who gets to see the data and who gets to use the data. So there's a collection and there is a use aspect. And too often that two levels are confused and rules are being written that's supposed to be addressed at the protocol level and their policies are being written. There is no such thing as a closed internet by definition. You cannot close out of internet because AOL tried to do that and it did not work too well for them as a business model. And for a country to say we're going to close the border, yes, maybe a China can do it, maybe a large country like India can do it, but then you're also closing yourself out from a global industry and a global economy. So you have to think about policy and privacy and security correctly, but you also got to address it at the levels. There are policy decisions and then there are protocol decisions. I see sometimes a co-mingling between the two. And I know all of you are, this is probably one group that actually got that. Very often they'll say, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but I'll stop there. Go to the next.
Yeah, my question is more of a technical nature, and with millions of devices around you, and you need to replace the batteries for all these devices. So what is the advances in energy harvesting that are now in practice in the IoT space?
In terms of the question was on energy harvesting?
Talking more about energy and battery stuff.
So certainly it's the whole notion of energy harvesting is an area of pretty vigorous research right now. People are, how do I get, the maximum number of joules per cubic centimeter? So, that is a problem. We look at, certainly another way to address that is to look at the radios and protocols that we use. So, low power Bluetooth or other extensions that people are looking to make to Zigbee, make the network more aware so that when a device is not being used, it goes into deep sleep modes. So there's other things we can do besides just trying to get a better battery. The other challenge question I'd leave you with though is, do all devices really need to be battery operated? An awful lot of things in the Internet of Things will have power connected to it. Now you want it to be use that efficiently. You want the ability to have networks that mesh together in an ad hoc manner, that I can pull things in and out. That may be more important than getting the last nanowatt out of it. So Certainly, it's a good area of research, and I think that will, as we get better battery sources, nanotube, other technologies should give us better densities. But I think the other way to look at the problem is there another way to skin it in terms of how we do protocols, how we make the network aware, and first off, do we always need it?
So I'll also encourage you to, and I'm answering more from monitoring perspective, that if you want to monitor your battery usage and how the device is faring, and you want to monitor the device, you would want to look at it LWM2M, which is lightweight M2M. It's a stack which has been created by the OMA group, the alliance, and it looks at you can actually control a device, and you can find out that the device, the battery is a resource in that stack, and you can find out that the battery is going down, that you need to back up the data, you need to get the data, or you need to get the data. You can control it and say, don't send me data in 5 minutes, send me in 15 minutes, so that you can sustain it over a period of time. So you might want to look at that protocol. It's doing quite good these days, and you can read up on that.
Over here.
As the things happen in IoT, the proliferation of data is going to be too much. And now, what initiatives are taken for ensuring the integrity of the data, security, and to avoid hacking by others? Because it can confuse, it can create a hell of a lot of confusion all around, because your particular data is very essential for you.
So this in itself could be a whole session, right? On data proliferation, data quality and data size. I'm going to respond just summarizing some of the points they made here, and then maybe you can add if I've missed anything. First one is, with the avalanche of data, the next question should be asking is, what data do you really need? So you better ask the right questions. And rather than just collecting data, goes back to what you said. First you collect it, you have to integrate it, but then you have to synthesize and take stuff out. So you better frame the question, frame the policies correctly. That's the first one. So more thought has to go into that. Second one is also who needs to see the data. This is where protocols and policies come to play. So you can collect on one network, but you give different levels of data to different people depending on their access. You talked about, I want my doctor to see my medical data. I don't want my insurance guy to see my data, not till I'm ready to offer it. Right? It can come on the same network. So that's the second. And the third one, of course, comes back is not all data is relevant. And 95 to 98% of all the data at the edge is not going to be relevant, which is why fog computing and computing at the edge and storage at the edge, analytics at the edge will become even more important, not just cloud computing. So I think there's a lot of work being done, and I think you will get to a point where you'll always have too much data. By the way, this is not just, how many of you have stacks of books and articles and papers at your home saying, I'm going to read it. Till now, some of us are saying, when we retire, we'll read it. So data is going to be the same thing, I think. We are always going to have more data than we need and more data than we collect. I will just say one more thing. Credit cards. When all of us talk about privacy, how many of you use credit cards? I suspect the others who are saying no, just lying. The fact is, credit cards took off as a global industry only in 1980 when OECD wrote the standards for it. And that is what we don't have yet for IoT, the global standards of sharing data across clouds, across hybrid clouds, and across boundaries. It is already taking place because UN has a focus on it, World Economic Forum has a focus on it. I think hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, question here.
And also there are standards being written, like a lot of, if you have to implement IoT, right? How does the data flow? A lot of telcos are saying that we